Hi, I am Merlin and I'm back once again. But this time, I'm going to report the first part of Chapter 8, which is Corporate Strategy, Diversification, and the Multi-Business Company. So in this chapter, we're going to learn and understand when and how diversifying into multiple businesses can enhance shareholder value, gain an understanding of how related diversification strategies can produce cross-business strategic fit capable of delivering competitive advantage, and third, become aware of the merits and risk of corporate strategies keyed to unrelated diversification. So, ang tanong dito, bakit o kailan ba kailangan ng business diversification? As long as a single business company can achieve profitable growth opportunities in its present industry, there is no urgency to pursue diversification. However, a company's opportunities for growth can become limited if the industry becomes competitively unattractive. Thus, diversifying into new industry always merits strong consideration whenever a single business company encounters diminishing market opportunities and stagnating sales in its principal business. Building shareholder value, the ultimate justification for business diversification. Business diversification stands little chance of building shareholder value without passing the following three tests. So, kailangan nating mapasa yung three tests na ito. The first one is the industry attractiveness test. So, the industry to be entered through diversification must offer an opportunity for profits and return on investment that is equal or better than of the company's present business. So, bakit ka pa magda-diversify kung ang iyong magiging profit or yung return of your investment is equal lang? So, dapat mas mataas or higher ang iyong return of investment. Second, the cost of entry test. So, the cost of entry or the cost to enter the target industry must not be so high as to erode the potential for good profitability. The more attractive an industry's prospects are for growth and good long-term profitability, the more expensive it can be to enter. So, tama nga naman, di ba? Kung established na ang industry na iyong papasukin is probably is mahal or it is way expensive than those of the industry na hindi established. Third, the better off test. Diversifying into a new business must offer potential for the company's existing businesses and the new business to perform better together under a single corporate umbrella than they would perform operating as independent stand-alone business. For example, let us say Company A diversifies by purchasing Company B in another industry. Again, we need to satisfy all these three tests in order to gain the greatest potential to grow shareholder value over the long term. Let's now move on to the approaches to diversifying the business lineup. The means of entering a new industries and lines of business can take any of the three forms. It's either acquisition, internal development, or joint ventures with the other companies. First, we have acquisition. I have already talked or discussed in the previous chapter what acquisition is. Again, it is a popular means of diversifying into another industry. Not only it is quicker than trying to launch a new operation, but it also offers an effective way to hurdle such entry barriers as acquiring technological know-how, establishing supplier relationship, achieving scale economies, building brand awareness, and securing adequate distribution. Buying an ongoing operation allows the acquirer to move directly to the task of building a strong market position in the target industry, rather than getting back down in the fine point of launching a startup. So, the big question and the big dilemma of an acquisition minded firm faces is whether to pay a premium price for a successful company or to buy a struggling company at a bargain price. So, you know who Andrew Tan is? He is also one of the shareholders in our company, and he purchased the Fundador. As we all know, this brand is already established and the prospect of growth is high. So most probably, it also cost him a fortune to acquire that business. So by means of acquiring this big company, mas maging madali yung pag-launch ng business. Kasi nga, kilala na ang brand na ito sa market. And the market position of this brand is also good. Next, we have entering a new line of business through internal development. Achieving diversification through internal development involves starting a new business subsidiary from scratch. Generally, forming a startup subsidiary to enter a new business has appeal only when, first, the parent company already has in-house most or all of the skills and resources needed to compete effectively. Second, there is ample time to launch the business. Third, internal entry has lower cost than entry via acquisition. Fourth, the target industry is populated with many relatively small firms, such that the new startup does not have to compete against the large, powerful rivals. Fifth, adding new production capacity will not adversely impact the supply and demand balance in the industry. And six, incumbent firms are likely to be slow or ineffective in responding to a new entrant's efforts to crack the market. So, and the last we have joint venture. A joint venture to enter a new business can be useful in at least two types of situation. First, a joint venture is good vehicle for pursuing an opportunity that is too complex and economical or risky for one company to pursue alone. Second, joint venture makes sense when the opportunities in new industry require a broader range of competencies and know-how than an expansion-minded company can marshal. Okay, let's have now the second learning objective, that is to gain an understanding of how related diversification strategies can produce cross-business strategic fit capable of delivering competitive advantage. So first is choosing the diversification path, related versus unrelated businesses. Once a company decides to diversify, its first big corporate strategy decision is whether to diversify into related businesses or unrelated businesses or some mix of both. Businesses are said to be related when their value chain possesses competitively valuable cross-business relationships. These value chain matchups presents opportunities for the business to perform better under the same corporate umbrella than they could by operating as a standalone entities. Meanwhile, when we say unrelated businesses, it is when the activities comprising their respective value chain and resources requirements are so dissimilar that no competitively valuable cross-business relationship are present. So diversifying into related business. A related diversification strategy involves building the company around businesses whose value chain possesses competitively valuable strategic fit. So, when we say strategic fit, it exists whenever one or more activities comprising the value chain of different business are sufficiently similar to the present opportunities form. So we have transferring competitively valuable resource expertise, technology, know-how, or other capabilities from one business to another. Second, cost sharing between separate business where value chain activities can be combined. For instance, it is often feasible to manufacture the product of different business in a single plant or have a single sales force for the product of different businesses if they are marketed to the same type of customers. Third, brand sharing between business units that have common customer or that draw upon common core competencies. For example, Yamaha's name in motorcycles gave it instant credibility and recognition in entering the personal watercraft business, allowing it to achieve a significant market share without spending a large sum on advertising that established a brand entity for the wave runner. Okay, in this figure 8.2, we have the representative value chain activities where we can see the business A and the business B. So they have this collaboration exist between the two companies. So a competitively valuable opportunities for technology or skills transfer, cost reduction, and a common brand name usage and cross-business collaboration exist at one or more points along with the value chains of the business A and business B. Okay, let's have now the strategic fit and economies of scale. Strategic fit in the value chain activities of a diversified corporations, different businesses opens up opportunities for economies of scope, a concept distinct from economies of scale. When we say economies of scale, are cost savings that accrue directly from a larger operation. So for example, a unit cost may be lower in a large plant than in a small plant. The ability of related diversification to deliver competitive advantage and gains in a shareholder value. Economies of scope and the other strategic fit benefits provide a dependable basis for earning higher profit and return than what a diversified company's business could earn as a standalone enterprise. So, converting the competitive advantage potential into a greater profitability is what fuels 1 plus 1 is equals 3 gains in shareholder value. The necessary outcome for satisfying the better off test. There are three things to bear in mind. First, capturing cross-business strategic fit via related diversification builds shareholder value in ways that shareholders cannot replicate by simply owning a diversified portfolio of stocks. Second, the capture of cross-business strategic fit benefit is possible only through related diversification. And third, the benefits of cross-business strategic fit are not automatically realized. The benefits materialize only after management has successfully pursued internal action to capture them. So let's have now The third learning objective: become aware of the merits and risk of a corporate strategies key to unrelated diversification. Diversifying into unrelated businesses. Companies that pursue a strategy of unrelated diversification generally exhibit a willingness to diversify into any industry where senior managers see opportunity to realize improved financial results. Such companies are frequently labeled conglomerates because their business interests range broadly across diverse industries. Companies that pursue unrelated diversification nearly always enter new businesses by acquiring an established company rather than by internal development. There are three types of acquisition candidates are usually of particular interest. First, business that have bright growth prospect but are short on investment capital. Second, undervalued companies that can be acquired at a bargain price. And struggling companies whose operation can be turned around with the aid of the parent company's financial resources and managerial know-how. So when we say the parenting activities of corporate executive can take form of providing expert problem-solving skills, creative strategy suggestions, and firm-rate advice and guidance on how to improve the competitiveness and financial performance to the heads of the various business subsidiaries. Next, building shareholder value through unrelated diversification. To succeed with a corporate strategy key to unrelated diversification, the corporate executive must do a superior job of identifying and acquiring new businesses that can produce a consistently good earnings and returns on investment. Do an excellent job of negotiating favorable acquisition prices and do such good job overseeing and parenting the firm's business that they perform at a higher level than they would otherwise be able to do through their own efforts alone. The pitfall of unrelated diversification. Unrelated diversification strategies have two important negatives that undercut the pluses. That is a very demanding managerial requirement, and second, a limited competitive advantage potential. Let's talk first the demanding managerial requirements. So, successfully managing a set of fundamentally different business operating in a fundamentally different industry and competitive environments is exceptionally difficult proposition for a corporate level managers. So, the greater the number of the businesses a company is in, and the more diverse they are, the more difficult it is to corporate managers to stay abreast of what's happening in each industry and each subsidiary. Pick a business unit heads having the requisite combination of managerial skills and know how to drive gains and performance, and tell the difference between those strategic proposals of a business unit's managers that are prudent and those that are risky or unlikely to succeed. And fourth, know what to do if business unit stumbles and its result suddenly head downhill. So as a rule, the more unrelated businesses that the company has diversified into, the more corporate executives are forced to manage by the numbers. That is, keep a close track of the financial and operating result of each subsidiaries and assume that the heads of the various subsidiaries have most everything under control. Also, along as latest the key financial and operating measurements look good. So that would be a challenge for the unrelated businesses. Second is limited competitive advantage potential. The second big negative associated with unrelated diversification is that such a strategy offers limited potential for competitive advantage beyond what each individual business can generate on its own. So, unlike a related diversification strategy, there is no cross business strategic fit to draw on for reducing cost, transferring capabilities, skills, and technology, or leveraging use of a powerful brand name and thereby adding to the competitive advantage possessed by individual businesses. Without the competitive advantage potential of a strategic fit, consolidated performance of an unrelated group of businesses is unlikely be better than the sum of what individual business units could achieve independently in most instances. Okay. And the last topic, we have the misguided reasons for pursuing diversification. So here is the reasons why management sometimes undertakes a strategy of unrelated diversification for a wrong reason. First, we have risk reduction, growth, earning stabilization, and managerial motives. When we say risk reductions, managers sometimes pursue unrelated diversification to reduce risk by spreading the company's investment over a set of diverse industries. But this cannot create a long-term shareholder value alone, since the company's shareholder can more efficiently reduce their exposure to risk by investing in a diversified portfolio of stock and bonds. Growth. While unrelated diversification may enable a company to achieve rapid or continuous growth in revenues, only profitable growth can bring about increase in shareholder value and justify a strategy of unrelated diversification. Earning stabilization. In a broadly diversified company, there's a chance that the market downtrend in some of the company's businesses will be partially offset by cyclical upswings in its other businesses, thus producing somewhat less earnings volatility. In actual practice, however, there is no convincing evidence that the consolidated profits of firms with unrelated diversification strategies are more stable than the profits of firms with related diversifying strategies. Next, the managerial motives. Unrelated diversification can provide benefit to managers such as a higher compensation, which tends to increase with the firm's size and degree of diversification. Diversification, for this reason alone, is far more likely to reduce shareholder value than to increase it. And last, diversifying into both related and unrelated businesses. There's nothing to preclude a company from diversifying into both related and unrelated businesses. Instead, the business makeup of diversified company varies considerably. Some diversified companies are really dominant business enterprises. One major or core business accounts for 50 to 80% of the total revenues, and a collection of a small related or unrelated businesses accounts for the remainder. There's an ample room for the companies to customize their diversification strategies to incorporate elements of both related and unrelated diversification. So, some diversified companies are narrowly diversified around a few or 2 to 5 related or unrelated businesses, Others are broadly diversified around wide-range collection of related businesses, unrelated businesses, or the mix of both. And a number of the multi-business enterprise have diversified into several unrelated groups of related businesses. So that would be the end of my report. Thank you for listening, and let's hear the second part of this report, of this chapter, from Miss Elizal. So thank you. Have a good day. God bless.